Hey everyone, Jason here from the Millie PM2 P3 Club, and I wanted to tell you about some new knives today, but first I thought I'd show off the new sticker. Brand new and shiny and pretty. That's right, new stickers. Come see us in the Facebook group and you can get some. But the real reason we're here is to check out the Paisan and the Swayback. Two very excellent knives from Spyderco, both in a similar vein. We've got steel and titanium. We've got frame locks on both, but that's pretty much where the similarities stop, and then they each divide off into very different designs. So why don't we start first with Paisan. This knife has been around for a while, and there's been many reviews about it on the internet. I'm not going to break any new ground here, I don't think, but I just wanted to give you my impression overall of the knife. This knife is on loan to me from one of the moderators in the club, Scott Bolin. Scott, thank you for sending this my way, because I really, truly enjoyed playing with it the last couple days. And it really is an excellent knife. So, some things I love about it. To start with, Risanti, I believe, was the first person to come up with the concept of a handle made out of just one piece of titanium. And the amount of engineering and milling that has to go into this is pretty incredible to me. Not only do you have to get it right, but you also have to figure out how to make the lock bar work properly. I really don't know how you go about doing that and not throw away just an insane amount of material as you're going. So I'm really impressed with the handle. There's a lot of rigidity here. There's a lot of strength for a very lightweight package. Just some quick numbers for you. The entire blade overall is quite long. It's 8.74 inches long. The blade itself is 3.9 inches and the handle is 4.8 inches. So it's a very long knife. Despite being a very long knife, it's deceptively lightweight. The knife itself only weighs 4.4 ounces. And I would guess that 4.3 of it is the steel in the blade, because this steel, ladies and gentlemen, is ridiculously thick. This is actually a 4mm thick piece of stock, which is about 1.57 inches, I believe. So we're talking about a blade stock that's among the thickest I've ever seen on a folding pocket knife. And you can tell when you hold it that a lot of the weight is in the end of the knife. So it's not quite blade heavy. It does balance on the pivot, but it's very close. And where you notice it the most is when you pop it open. So why don't I do this right-handed like the knife is designed? There we go. When you pop it open, there's a lot of kick to it, similar to Subvert or the K2, because there's just a lot of mass in this blade. And this pivot is very well done. I mean, it glides. And so if you like a smooth operating knife, this might be one of the smoothest operating knives I've ever felt that runs on washers. It actually has just a fantastic hydraulic action to the close. It opens very easily, flicks open and shut very easily. I love the look of the stonewashed blade, just excellent. Stonewashed S90V, I don't know that it gets better than that, does it? Who doesn't want a steel that is tougher than S30V, holds an edge among the best of any stainless steel, and is also stainless? That's a fantastic steel. So we combine that with everything else going on here, you've got a wonderful knife. One thing that stood out to me that was really kind of a personal preference thing, but I'm curious if any of you would be affected by this. The handle is incredibly thin. I mean super thin. If you compare this to many other knives, I think you're going to find that this is very thin. And when I hold it in my large hands, it kind of gets lost. There's not a lot of mass to it, and you feel like you're holding a pencil because it's so thin. Now, the clip that Scott has selected for this A Purvis Timascus clip, really helps a lot, because it provides a little extra bulk in the back of the knife right where you want it, in the palm of your hand here, where you're usually not going to get a lot of grip. Now all of a sudden I feel like I've got a lot better grip on the knife because of that. that is probably my biggest criticism of the knife, is the way that it feels in my hand. So obviously that is not a slight on the manufacturer, and it's not a slight on the designer. That's just my personal preference. But you guys aren't here just to hear me. You're not here to just butter it up, right? You want to hear what I really think. The one last thing that I think is kind of an oddity on this knife is just how very thick the blade is. It seems to me that they could winnow this down a lot and it would still be every bit as good a knife as it is now, but it wouldn't feel just so blade heavy. And when you open it, it wouldn't really kick in your hand as much because the acceleration on that blade is pretty crazy. I love the lock. I love the fact that it has a steel insert. I love the fact that we're dealing with like a unibody construction, right, where it's all one piece. That's really incredible. And being made in Taichung means that it really is an excellent quality knife. They sure know what they're doing down there. It carries comfortable in the pocket. It's a lot of cutting edge in a relatively discreet package. So if you don't own a Paisan, I would highly recommend it. It's really an excellent knife. So now we're going to move into the Swayback. The Swayback was developed by one of Spyderco's more successful and more well-known designers who's done many partnerships with Spyderco at this point. His name is Marcin Sliz. Now, Marcin has designed, probably most famously, he designed the Sliz Bowie, which you might know from Nick Shabaz's review as being one of the greatest knives Spyderco has ever made. Consequently, since it's been discontinued, the values of those have gone up rapidly, and now they're incredibly collectible. Sliz also designed the Techno 1 and the Techno 2. He designed, I believe that he designed the Chef. Could be wrong on that, somebody fact check me. But now he's here with the Swayback. And this knife has been long anticipated. My understanding is that they've been talking about doing this for years, and now it's here. So the knife is made all from titanium, of course. We have a traditional Spyderco clip as the Paisan shipped with. We have cts-xhp steel on the blade, which seems to be a Sliz favorite. It's really an excellent steel. In the world of all these hyper steels that we have, things like Maximate and K390 and Vanix, which is starting to come on, in that world, cts-xhp is sort of an older steel. However, it's a really excellent steel. It's twice as tough as D2, which is on the scope of things, considered to be a tough steel. So this is a considerably tough steel, comparatively. The edge retention is pretty good. And one thing that I enjoy about it is it's very stainless, but it's also relatively easy to sharpen. I've never had trouble sharpening an XHP knife. It just takes an edge really well. So maybe you're medium good at sharpening. Maybe you don't have a fancy sharpening system. I think you're going to love working with XHP. It does not have all of the pitfalls and aggravations of M390 or S110V or Maximate. Those are three steels that I can think of right off the top of my head that are relatively difficult to sharpen. Now remember, I said relatively difficult. Right now, one of you is nagging me in your head about how they're not hard for you. And I'm not talking about you. I'm talking about on the grand scope of steels, this one is pretty easy to sharpen. All right, I digress. Let's get back to the knife here, the knife at hand. My first impression of this knife was that I really wanted to like it because I'm giving away my secret here. I love the way that the handle is carved with a nice 3D carve, and I like and appreciate the look of the knife. It's just very simple. We have these really cool standoffs. No lanyard tube, thankfully. Simple, practical pocket clip that rides on both the frame and the lock. And then we have this nice discreet little blade. What I was hoping for this knife is that it would just be something very easy to use that would slide in and out of my pocket. And unfortunately, what I'm finding is that it just isn't. Number one, the first thing that I'm noticing about this knife that's kind of a challenge to me is that I'm having a hard time deploying the blade. I was anticipating a knife that I could flick open, and I'm finding on this knife that it's really not very flickable. Also, you can see the size of my thumb here and that little tiny hole. In order to reach it, I have to get past all of this scale material. There's actually quite a bit of scale material there. This thing is fairly thick, and I have to get past all of that to get to the hole. And once I do, there's not a lot to grab onto, so I really have to use my thumbnail to get the blade out. Also, when you hold the knife in your right hand, as you're supposed to, on the back of the knife, the lock takes up more than 50% of the back of the knife. Actually, it's probably exactly 50%. So, where do you put your fingers when you hold the knife and then deploy it? Well, you have to hold it. You can't not hold the knife. But if you squeeze on the lock bar, it makes deploying the blade harder because the lock bar presses onto the blade. I'm finding it's very difficult to open this knife without pinching the blade. So you actually have to do a move like this where you're pinching it up here in your pinky in order to get good grip here with these three fingers so that you can use your thumb to open it. That's a weird place to put a knife. Now, if I open this knife, my natural inkling is to put it in my hand like this. So now I'm actually I'm pressing it down into my palm, and I can open the knife, and I'm never losing grip on the knife. I've got a lot of points of contact. When I use this swayback, I don't really have that. I've got a really weird grip on the knife. As far as action, perhaps it's just this one. I haven't adjusted it, but this knife does not really want to close. I'm finding it's a little tight. So this honestly kind of reminds me of something that my grandfather would carry, a swayback style knife, perhaps something with a bone handle, not titanium, but it's reminiscent of an older era of knives, and perhaps tactical was not the name of the game when this was designed. I have a feeling this knife was designed to be a simple folder that you open and close with your thumb, and perhaps two-handed. So a lot of cutting can be done with this knife. The blade shape is interesting. You are definitely going to get a sharp edge here that's going to do some cutting. But I am very unfamiliar with this style of blade, and I don't own any. So I've not really put it through the paces, and I don't really know what to anticipate from a blade like that. I do know that when it's curved the other direction, you get a more practical cutting surface depending on any angle with your hand. With this knife, it seems to me like you're mostly going to be dragging the tip across everything, which will work until the tip gets dull. So, overall, this knife confuses me more than it excites me. And I don't have any qualms with the quality of the knife. I don't have any qualms with the fit and finish of the knife. It's extremely well made. I'm gonna have to watch some other people's videos on these and see what they're doing when they open and close them. I've heard legends of people flicking them open. I'm awfully disappointed as a lefty that I can't even come close to using this left-handed, which makes me wonder why they made the clip ambidextrous. That's very weird. Why in the world would anyone carry this in their left pocket? At any rate, it's a very well-made knife. It's a wonderful knife. If you are interested in a slim pocket cutter that's going to give you lots of cutting power and give you lots of a lot of knife in a smaller package, I'd encourage you to look at the Kapara instead, or perhaps at the Spyderco Chef, because I believe the Spyderco Chef gives you an infinitely better blade design with the titanium, and if you want something that's going to be slim and fancy, then the Kapara is unbeatable in this range. It's going to save you $70, and you're going to be quite a bit happier for it. I do have two alternative suggestions for knives that you should consider before perhaps buying these. One of them is the Quiet Carry Waypoint, which is a titanium handled knife with a Vanek steel blade and a liner lock. The liners are made of LC200N. So the Swayback and the Quiet Carry are similar in size, They're really not similar in weight. The quiet carry is substantially lighter. There's just a lot less titanium going on there. The Vanex steel is a significant improvement on the cts-xhp, and it's going to not only hold a better edge, but it's also going to be almost impossible to stain. The quiet carries come in raw titanium, or you can get them Cerakoted in different colors. So approximately the same price. The quiet carry is going to come in at just a hair under 300, whereas these are closer to 270. So if you're considering a Swayback, but you want a knife that's practical, lightweight, easy to carry, stain resistant, easy to open and close ambidextrously, I'd highly recommend checking out the quiet carry. Now, as an alternative to the Paisan, this might be hard for some of you, because the Paisan really is an excellent knife, and if you like Spyderco, this is going to be the premium knife of the moment for Spyderco for a folder. That being said, the Vero Impulse, I think, is a worthy competitor to the Paisan. The knife overall length is similar. The blade length is close. That's 3.9 inches. This is 3.7. We have a frame lock instead of a, well, yeah, they're both frame locks. But on the Vero, we have a finger flipper. We also have this little thumb hole here, which actually allows you to finger flick right-handed, which is pretty great. And as a lefty, you can flick it with your thumb. This knife is just a hair heavier than the Paisan, but this knife is also only $295, whereas the Paisan is going to come in at about, gosh, I believe it's a hair over 500. So $300 for M390 steel titanium handle, wonderfully smooth ball bearing action, hydraulic close, flipper. Over here we have S90V, great action, kind of a slim handle, kind of a tough pocket clip. The original pocket clip's a little tough. The aftermarkets are better, but for the money, you could get yourself a lot of knife from a competitor compared to the Paisan. So if you love Rasanti designs, you're not going to have any problems with the Paisan. If you have large hands like mine and you like a knife with a really good grip in your hands, if you're a Mannix or a Shaman fan, you might be disappointed with this knife. And the Vero Impulse is a thicker, bigger handled knife that offers you a really great grip, a really good design with nice jimping right where you want it. Very, very comfortable knife. So there you go. 2 really excellent Spydercos and 2 competitors that you should consider before throwing down your money. I think that's all I got for you today. Thanks for watching. I appreciate your time. I'm glad you could hang in there and watch this entire long video. If you have any questions, please reach out on the Facebook group. You can find us at the Millie Paramilitary 2 Para 3 Club. We're also available on Instagram and right here on YouTube. So thanks for watching. Have a good night.